What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron. We had a bunch of crazy stuff happen last night. We had the AJ Brown trade, the Marquise Brown trade. We had a bunch of landing spots. We had quarterbacks go in the first round, or just one quarterback go in the first round. My beloved Malik Willis fell out of the first round. So I wanted to hop on here. We're going to do this one take Drake style so I can just record it, upload it as soon as possible before day 2 starts. So with that being said, we're going to go over pretty much all of the fantasy football fallout of all of the moves and draft picks, pretty much my round 1 fantasy football winners and losers, pretty much from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, but a little bit of redraft talk here and there. So with that being said, let's not waste any time. Make sure you go down below, subscribe, and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
Now, before I talk about any picks, let's just I'm 20 years old, but let's just pop a little champagne, pour a little glass, a little toast to me, your boy, one of the most versatile in the game. I did a mock draft 2 days ago, my final mock draft. I'm telling you guys, when I say that I was grinding, dude, I was listening to all of the podcasts. I hopped into 2 fan base Twitter spaces trying to figure out what's kind of where are these teams at in terms of who they're going to pick. This to the right of me, this way, is my final mock draft that I submitted. I hit up the guy who runs the contest way after the deadline. I was like, dude, I have a YouTube channel. Please let me submit one of these. And he was like, fine. He was giving me a hard time, but whatever. I get it. We finished first, which is really cool. My first time ever doing it. Guys like Evan Silva, Benjamin Solak was in there, Daniel Jeremiah, Lance Zierlein, Benjamin Albright. Trying to think of anybody else in terms of Josh Norris from Underdog, Hayden Wings from Underdog, and your boy, 20 years old, got to be the youngest winner of all time. Little kind of like Floyd Mayweather, or is that Canelo? I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty cool. The only bittersweet part is we're at a 3-way tie. So I won, but in a 3-way tie. So me, Forrest N. Long, and Ben Standig at the Athletic 3-way tie at the top. Whatever. Pretty cool. First time getting a dub. So yeah, we won that accuracy contest. This is the mock to the right of me. But with that being said, I'll be doing that probably every year, I think. But yeah, it's just always something that I wanted to do. As a guy that just has always fallen in love with the draft, as a Jets fan who, that's all we got, man. It's always, that's in terms of me being this into fantasy football, that was the progression. I was little, I played Madden, then I rooted for the Jets. Or I always rooted for the Jets, but then I rooted hard for the Jets after Madden and playing football growing up. And then it was oh, we suck. The NFL draft is all we got. So then got into prospects, and then from prospects, fantasy football and dynasty and all that. So that's kind of how that spiraled out. So, doing mock draft stuff like that and being in that competition has always been a dream of mine. So pretty cool. Again, I say win it, but tied to win it. I still get one of those little trophies next to my name on that website now. So that's pretty cool. Regardless. First thing we're going to talk about in terms of our fantasy winners after round 1 of the NFL draft, Drake London and Garrett Wilson. Not just really because landing spots, again, I dropped a video yesterday. Landing spots, they matter, but not nearly as much as draft capital. And for these wide receivers in my model in the RS grades, if you don't know what RS grades, it's my wide receiver model. I've done videos on it in the past. But if you already have a really good prerequisite profile, top 10 draft capital gives you a massive boost, and that's what we saw for Drake London and Garrett Wilson. Drake London goes 8 to the Falcons. Garrett Wilson goes 10 to my New York Jets. And this is what they were at pre-draft, right? So that is assuming not top 10 draft capital. I know it says 8 and 10. That's because I updated it, but that is before I put the multiplier on. So 8.26, 8.14. High-end gold. I included DeAndre Hopkins there so you guys could see. Drake London would have been the best gold ever in my database. But it still puts him... You can kind of leap and say, oh, maybe he's DeAndre Hopkins, but a lower tier. But it puts them in that category of Rashad Bateman, N'Keal Harry, Sidney Rice, Jerry Jeudy, Will Fuller, just like good wide receivers, but not elite wide receivers. Now, once they get that top 10 draft capital, they go from a gold, which hit top 24 wide receiver seasons at a 45% clip, to elite, which hit top 24 wide receivers 85% of the time. That's a massive difference. So they go top 10, and that's huge. Now they go from Will Fuller, Jerry Jeudy, N'Keal Harry to AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, Devonta Smith, Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb, Demaryius Thomas, Calvin Ridley. The only player on that list that hasn't really hit a top 24 season is Devonta Smith, and he's only 1 year into the league. So really, really good, really, really big bump for both of those guys. Now, I think that most analysts probably won't see that the same way, but top 10 draft capital is massive for wide receiver. Now, a different conversation down the line is like, there's kind of some inflation going on with wide receivers where, there's such a demand for them, and like the Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams thing where they just set the market to the point where we had like 4 wide receivers fly off the board between like picks 8 through 12. But regardless, I like, Drake London is now in that A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans range as like a big body type wide receiver, whereas Garrett Wilson, CeeDee Lamb, and Calvin Ridley are all in that same tree as well. So when you're kind of thinking through these wide receivers, that's kind of what you have in mind in terms of what their ceiling outcomes look like. Now, for me, if you put a gun to my head and you ask me, like, how would I list the top wide receivers, I think it would be, I think, I got to be honest with you guys, I've been team Treylon Burks, wide receiver 1 this entire time. But now that Drake London had 8th overall draft capital, which is really high, I think that I lean Drake London wide receiver 1. He just doesn't have as many red flags. He's a 21-year-old early declare. He's just a cleaner prospect, whereas Treylon Burks, I love him, but there's so much more negativity towards Treylon Burks in terms of like his film profile. And I know that Lance Zierlein liked him on film, but it seems like a lot of guys think that he's limited in terms of his route tree. His reception perception wasn't great. Really like a slot guy that's kind of limited in terms of beating press on the outside. I'm not saying that I don't like him. I'm still going to end up with plenty of Treylon Burks. He'll definitely be my wide receiver 2 at worst, wide receiver 3 if I push Garrett Wilson ahead of him. But I do think that Drake London is just the cleaner prospect at this point. The only reason I have him ahead of Garrett Wilson is because, like, just as a bigger body wide receiver like Treylon Burks, I do think that he has access to a higher ceiling. Like, he has A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel in his range of outcomes, Treylon Burks, where Garrett Wilson, I mean, Calvin Ridley's cool and so is CeeDee Lamb, but again, I do prefer, again, they're all in the same tier. They're going to be 1, 2, 3 in all my rankings, whatever way you want to do it is whatever. But when we talk about their situation in terms of Drake London and Garrett Wilson, I'm not sure there's any clear winners and losers in their situation. When we're talking about Drake London in Atlanta, I don't know why my seat isn't pushed in the way I want it to be, but when we talk about Drake London in Atlanta, there's plenty of room in that, wide receiver room for Drake London, Kyle Pitts to both thrive as soon as year 1. They do have Mariota at quarterback, which like isn't super ideal, but I don't think that he's the long-term answer there. I think once this year is over, they probably get like another like top 5 to 10 draft pick, and then that's when they go out there in 2023 and they get Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, whoever is that class is like Joe Burrow, Zach Wilson, late bloomer kind of guy, maybe Anthony Richardson. And I mean, Calvin Ridley probably comes back after that year, but it does seem like I'm not going to bump down Drake London because of the chance that Calvin Ridley comes back in a full year from now. At that point, he could get traded. Who knows? He was about to get traded before he even got suspended. Then we look at the Jets side of things. Actually, let me get this graphic off screen. But when we look at the Jets side of things, Zach Wilson gets a really nice boost because now he has Garrett Wilson on top of Elijah Moore. He has Corey Davis. He has both of the tight ends. Maybe they even add more to, his weapons today in the draft. I would love to see a tight end. I would love to see a running back, something along those lines. I think maybe even some O-line help. I mean, if you're going to ask me who the losers are, I think that some people are going to be very quick to jump to like Elijah Moore as a loser. He doesn't move at all in my rankings. Him and Garrett Wilson can easily be like the 1A, 1B, and I think that both players can produce just fine. Who will be the 1A and who will be the 1B? We have no idea yet. You can kind of just let that play out. If Elijah Moore, he was like wide receiver 16 before the draft. If he falls to like anything outside of the top 20 wide receivers in Dynasty, very easy buy. Now, I can't really call anybody a buy or sell without knowing the prices, right? So I'm just kind of giving my thoughts on the top of my head here. I will say, I guess Corey Davis is a loser, but he's like wide receiver 60 in ADP, so he was always a loser regardless. The thing with this Jet spot is I don't think much changes for me because we always assumed that they were going to take a wide receiver, whether that was Deebo or at 10 overall, they were going to take Jameson Williams or Garrett Wilson or Drake London. If anything, it's maybe a win because that's better than Deebo or A.J. Brown or DK Metcalf at that spot. But again, I think it's fine. I think really Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore's long-term ceiling really just depends on Zach Wilson and if he's good. Can Zach Wilson be a quarterback that can elevate the offense and be very good? He now has no excuses. He has all the weapons in the world that you could ask for. The Jets are finally building around their young quarterback the correct way. Zach Wilson gets this year, and if it doesn't work out and we go geez, with the new records with like what 17 games, I think we could go like 4-12, no, 4-13 or something like that. If we go like 4 wins, 5 wins, then Zach Wilson is gone and we draft Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, whoever. Now, the next pick that we're going to talk about is Chris Olave. I'm pretty much just going to go in order of these skill position players taken in the first round. We'll talk about Olave, and there's really not much that changed for me with Olave. I expected him to go early to mid first. Gets a good landing spot, not something that like I'm going to boost him up for, but Michael Thomas is only target competition, and Michael Thomas is going to take away the targets in the like shallow to intermediate parts, while Olave is going to be playing on the outside and operating like the intermediate to deep part. So he's going to be just fine. His role there is going to be very solidified. There's no one else competing for targets with him. Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, Adam Troutman should not be impeding him from gaining targets. The good part about Chris Olave is, and I know there's a lot of truthers out there, I know a lot of you guys like Chris Olave. If he's as good as you guys think, and the route running is going to translate, if he's actually good, he's going to get every opportunity to prove that. And if he goes out there and demands targets and he plays well, then you're looking at a fine asset in Dynasty. Now, if we're going to talk about winners and losers from this, I guess the only winner I would say is Jameis Winston. I think he's the big winner here because he gets a wide receiver target, so a little bit more weapons for Jameis Winston. He gets Chris Olave, now he has a healthy Michael Thomas. They didn't take a quarterback of the future. When they were at the 19th overall pick, they could have taken their quarterback one on their big board, and they passed for a tackle. So they're protecting Jameis Winston. They're getting him another weapon. He's playing quarterback, and they don't have a 2023 first in that next draft class. So Jameis Winston, if he goes out here and he plays well, he has every opportunity to prove himself to be a long-term starter in the NFL, which is really cool to see. I'm rooting for Jameis Winston, man. I love his game. He was a really good prospect coming out. Kind of just, I'm not going to say he was caught up like in the wrong situation, but he did get a little bit of a raw deal. Regardless, he's great for fantasy. He supported Godwin and Mike Evans. He should be doing something similar. I'm not going to say something similar because we don't know that Chris Olave is a Godwin-level talent or anything, but he's going to support Michael Thomas, and if Olave is good, he will support Olave as well. So that's a great spot, or that's great for all of them pretty much. After that, we have Jameson Williams at the 12th overall pick. And I think people are going to call Jameson Williams a loser from this. He definitely is a slight loser, just in the near term for me, though, because he is a deep threat wide receiver that operates down the field. And when you have Jared Goff, who's not the best deep ball thrower, he's probably a bottom 5 deep ball thrower. That's not great. Now, you were hoping for them to get like a quarterback of the future, maybe at like the 32nd pick or something like that. They do pick at 46th. Maybe it's a quarterback, but round 2, Malik Willis, Corral, Ritter versus round 1, Malik Willis, Corral, Ritter, Sam Howell it's a big jump. I thought that they were going to move up to 12 and get a quarterback. That seemed like it was likely, but this is a fine move for them regardless. Now, the reason why Jameson Williams isn't a huge loser for me is because Jameson Williams is rehabbing his ACL injury, and I think that it's already kind of baked into his price that we aren't really expecting near-term production, which is interesting with Jameson Williams because I think that people are going to – I saw a Bean Counter saying in his Discord that he was probably going to be fading Jameson Williams a little bit because of the torn ACL. You're not going to get production in year 1. But I do wonder, just from like a game theory standpoint, I do wonder if his value will be insulated because of that. Like almost like he's going to be given a mulligan, kind of in a similar way that Rashad Bateman was. Rashad Bateman really didn't produce well. You could almost say that he produced. Maybe I'm just talking my ass here, but I don't think that him and Rondale Moore had too different of a first year. I think that Rashad Bateman just played in less games. So I don't know. Regardless, I do think that it preserves him a little bit because you can just kind of use the excuse of, hey, he's coming off an ACL injury. We're looking forward to what he can do next year. Now, I think that people are going to say, this guy is not a loser for me at all, but people are going to say out there, I already saw a tweet out there that was like, Amon-Ra St. or I think it was Kluge tweeted out there, and I like Dave Kluge. He's a cool guy, but I think that he does jump to conclusions on Twitter at times. And he was like, Amon-Ra St. Brown's truthers are in shambles. And I'm an Amon-Ra St. Brown truther. I just bought a share of him before the draft, and I'm not like spooked at all. This is maybe one of the, if they were going to draft a wide receiver at 12, this was the best one for it to be. Besides Olave, Jameson Williams is a field stretcher guy. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy who plays primarily in the slot and operates in the shallow to intermediate parts of the field, gets Jameson Williams, who plays a little bit in the slot, but he's going to play on the outside primarily, deep parts of the field, only commanded about a 20% target share in college. He's not a massive threat. If anything, like a guy that can take the top off the defense and open things up underneath is big, especially with Jared Goff, where it's going to be a lot of decoy stuff downfield, at least in the near term. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is fine. I think if anybody's the biggest loser, it's DJ Chark. Jameson Williams is everything that DJ Chark is, but like 10 times better in terms of just being a downfield threat. I don't know why they signed DJ Chark with the intention of drafting Jameson Williams, but DJ Chark is done. It's over for DJ Chark. I'd be shocked if he ever returns you another top 24 season. There's just no way. Like he's like fringing on like out of the league type territory. Maybe I'm overreacting and he can kind of have a late career Marvin Jones type resurgence, but I would be shocked. But for me, he's the biggest loser, and even then, he's kind of an irrelevant fantasy asset, so whatever. Now we have Jahan Dotson at the 16th overall pick. Awful pick. Everyone loses. Washington trades out of Jameson Williams to get Jahan Dotson at the 16th overall pick, picks Jahan Dotson over Treylon Burks. Awful pick by them. The losers are the Washington football fan base. That's a terrible pick. Jahan Dotson, like he was only appealing in rookie drafts, or the only appealing part of Jahan Dotson was that he would get drafted by the Chiefs, and then all the Jahan Dotson truthers would just overdraft him at like the 105, 106. Now you're in a spot where he gets drafted 16th overall, so I guess people that like Jahan Dotson are kind of pumped on, like 10 more picks of expected draft capital. He was expected to go like 25, 29-ish. So he gets better draft capital, but really tough spot, because I think that this is different from the Mariota Goff spot where those guys are bridge quarterbacks, but it seems like Carson Wentz could start multiple years there. You already have Terry McLaurin there. It's not great. It's not great. I mean, I don't think that there's really anybody else out there that's I'm not going to get into the weeds on losers, man. Like, I guess you could call, not Curtis Samuel, but like Diami Brown a loser, but we already know that Diami Brown probably faceplants isn't going to be relevant in fantasy for a while. If Dotson, like if this landing spot spooks people off to the point where he's like a mid-second, like a Kadarius Toney, where he just falls super far, then I'll be interested. But if he's going like 109, 110, I'm personally chilling at that price. Next up, we have Treylon Burks, 18th overall pick. And this is the one that has a lot of drama going on, because we have Treylon Burks, he goes 18th overall, but that 18th overall pick was the Eagles. The Eagles trade away that 18th overall pick and a third for Treylon Burks. First and foremost, I love Joe Douglas. He's building something here. But if it only costed an 18th overall pick and a third rounder for AJ Brown, I'm a little bit ticked off that we couldn't get Treylon Burks or Deebo Samuel if that was the market for them. Whatever. I mean, in a perfect scenario, it's whatever. I guess on the other side of things, it's, Zach Wilson might not be ready to win yet. So, I mean, if we invest on AJ Brown right now and he's not, he doesn't really line up with our championship path, who knows? But he is pretty young. He's like 25. So I don't know. You got like 3-4 years to make something happen. Regardless, let's talk about Treylon Burks first. He goes 18th overall to the Titans. AJ Brown leaves, so that's a wide open wide receiver room. I would call this pretty neutral, maybe a loser for Treylon Burks. Now, I think it's pretty wild that on Twitter and just like the general consensus is like the Titans is a great landing spot for Treylon Burks, and people are really zoomed into the fact that like AJ Brown left and there's no competition in that wide receiver room. This is a pretty bad landing spot. The Titans, they don't pass a ton. I think they were second to last in pass attempts per game. And I know I just made a video about how that's not sticky, but as long as like Vrabel is there and Derrick Henry is there, I don't see, and Ryan Tannehill is there. Like as long as that regime is there, they're probably going to hover around bottom 10 in pass attempts. So even if Treylon Burks is like the only guy that's going to be commanding targets, I guess he has Robert Woods next to him, and that's pretty much it. He should be commanding targets, but I don't think that he's going to command an AJ Brown level target share. Like AJ Brown level target share is like 27% target share with like a 3 yard per route run, like insane efficiency, insane amount of target dominance. And that was just enough for Treylon Burks to like scrape a top 5 finish. I think that Treylon Burks' ceiling is capped, but I guess like in terms of like his median outcome, it's decent having a wide open wide receiver room. If he is good, he will have every chance to prove it. You get a decently efficient passer in Ryan Tannehill, so it's not bad. He gets the easiest path to meaningful targets out of any of these guys, but again, low volume passing offense does limit his upside a little bit in the near term. I think what you're hoping for is that Tannehill, Vrabel, Derrick Henry type regime to, I don't know, it's tough because they just got they got the 1 seed the year before that. They made kind of a run with Derrick Henry in the playoffs. So it's not like Vrabel's on the hot seat or anything, but you're kind of just hoping to get maybe like a new OC and usher in a new quarterback and all that. So a lot of things that need to fall into place for Treylon Burks to reach top 5 upside. Now, again, he could just be mega talented, AJ Brown clone. He is as good as AJ Brown was, and he could, but that's like a 99.9 percentile outcome. I will say, in this spot, I think that the only other clear loser is Ryan Tannehill. losing A.J. Brown, Tannehill is known as a low-volume, high-efficiency passer, and A.J. Brown is a huge chunk of that. When you have like the most efficient wide receiver in the league, that is going to bump up your efficiency numbers. So that kills him a little bit. Last year, we saw the offense kind of fell apart. Here's the thing. Derrick Henry didn't play last year for a good chunk of games, and people thought that that's why the Titans kind of fell apart down the stretch in terms of their offense. But in my eyes, I don't have enough time to pull up the research for it, but A.J. Brown leaving was a bigger detriment to the Titans than Derrick Henry. And that's just the facts. I'm sorry. So that's tough for him. I guess like a mini winner would just be like Derrick Henry, because maybe they'll run the ball more without A.J. Brown, but they were running the ball at a high rate regardless. Now we're going to move on to the losers. If any, Derrick Henry, I mean, he doesn't really need more volume. He could fall apart here any time now. Now, if we're going to talk about the Eagles side of the trade, in terms of the losers, we have all Eagles pass catchers. Every single one. And it sucks. Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert were two guys that I was very excited for this season. Two guys that have shown that they earn targets. They're efficient on their targets. Not that Dallas Goedert's efficient on his targets, but Devonta Smith hasn't really shown that yet. But two guys that earned targets were in a consolidated offense where they were the only two options there. They were going to get their targets. It was going to be pretty good. A.J. Brown comes in, and he's going to suck up a good chunk of that pie on a small pie in a low pass volume offense. So very tough. Again, Smith and Goedert were fine, but now you add in A.J. Brown, and that really does crowd a wide receiver room when the pass volume is that low. Now, I'll also say that A.J. Brown is a loser from this as well, which really sucks because I love A.J. Brown. I'm not sure where I'm going to have him now in the Dynasty wide receiver rankings. Like, the tough part is that there really isn't a clear wide receiver 3 now in Dynasty. I think you could make a case for like 8 guys as wide receiver 3 in Dynasty. It gets really tough between like A.J. Brown, Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Kupp, even like Waddle, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, DJ Moore. I don't think you can say DJ Moore at wide receiver 3, but it gets really tough, man. Wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 12, you can order them however you want, and I really wouldn't bat an eye. But the way that A.J. Brown gets hurt by this is, I think a lot of people are going to think, well, A.J. Brown thrived in a low passing volume offense on the Titans, and now he's doing the same thing here. The difference is that he was on a low pass volume offense with no target competition, and now he's going to a low volume pass offense with 2 legit target earners that can, garner like 20% plus target share. So that's not great. So A.J. Brown goes from a guy who is a locked-in top 5 wide receiver, because we've seen him with Tannehill command like a 27% target share, be uber efficient. You move him to this offense, that 27% target share might go down to like 24. You might have a less efficient play from Jalen Hurts, low passing volume. He goes from like top 5 wide receiver to a fringe wide receiver 1. Now, there's one glimmer of hope in this entire Eagles trade. And it's this. I think Jacob Sanderson's been banging the drum about this on Twitter. This is the one glimmer of hope right here. And it's that through the first 6 weeks, Nick Sirianni comes in, he installs his offense. This is what he wanted to run from week 1. And through 6 weeks, he had the 5th highest passing volume in neutral game situations. So his neutral pass rate was 5th highest in the entire league, up there with the Chargers, Dolphins, Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, Buccaneers, in that area, which is really good. We want offenses that pass like this. Then Miles Sanders gets hurt. They start like rotating in running backs, and like things happen. They start changing around the offense, and they completely flip everything on its head, and they start running the ball a ton. Now, there's a chance that they saw that, and that kind of worked towards the end of the year. They were winning games. They were doing their thing. So they could just ride with that run-first approach again. But the Eagles, Howie Roseman, very smart. That's why he traded just the 18th overall pick and a 3rd overall pick for A.J. Brown, which is just absurd. If I'm an Eagles fan, I am jumping for joy. But they're an analytical first front office. Trading for A.J. Brown does signal to me that they want to pass more. And it could be a sign that they start to tilt things. I'm not saying that is the median outcome. That's not what we should be expecting, but there is a ceiling there where maybe they do start to pass the ball more. This is signaling that, similar to when the Ravens brought in Rashad Bateman last year, and then they had the 9th most pass attempts per game in the league after the year before being like bottom 5 in pass attempts. So this could be signaling a change. I'm not saying bet on it. I'm saying it's in the cards, and I don't know, man. It's in the cards. They could go out there, they could pass the ball a ton, and then that could be great. The other part of it is that long term, you have an out too, because Jalen Hurts now is pretty much on, I guess, like the hot seat, but he is in a spot where He needs to perform this year. They've given him all the weapons. Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith is one of the craziest receiving rooms in the NFL at this point. They have a great offensive line. He needs to show out, because if he doesn't play well, they have 2 2023 firsts. That will be a quarterback if Jalen Hurts does not show that he's a franchise quarterback. So long term, it's not the end of the world for these guys. Again, there's 2 outs where they want to skew more towards the pass because they made that move, or Jalen Hurts isn't that guy, and you get 1 year of down production and then a plethora of years of above average quarterback play, hopefully. Regardless, it does get tough. Those guys are all very clear losers. I will say the one winner is Jalen Hurts. He gets a stacked wide receiver room. He is going to be amazing in 2022. Long term, it does get shaky, though, because, again, he needs to perform well, probably make the playoffs, or they're going to be replacing him. Now, the other loser. Anybody with a 2022 rookie draft pick at this point. The 2022 rookie pick prices went down, fellas. The 102 got completely deflated. My guy Malik Willis was really hoping for him to get top 12 draft capital. He would have been an elite Konami code QB. Now that he fell to the second round of the NFL draft, we are looking at a gold Konami code quarterback. He becomes Jalen Hurts instead of being Josh Allen. It's nice, but your 102 essentially now became a 103, which is not good, because your 102 was valued around a third round startup pick, whereas your 103 was maybe like a late fourth. You just probably lost, and I have the 102 in one league. You lost a round and a half of startup value, which sucks. And not only does your 103 shift down, but every pick after that shifts down. After when you lose an elite quarterback like that, your 102 is now the 103, your 103 is now the 104, your 104 is now the 105. And then also something else that absolutely killed these picks. We only had one round one quarterback, which is awful. He was taken 20th overall. He was Kenny Pickett, and he was the worst. He was the worst prospect out of all of them, for fantasy at least. Any of the other quarterbacks picked 20th overall would have been better for fantasy. Kenny Pickett, a guy that I'm really not even interested in. I think that he'd probably be around like my 107 at this point, 108. I would hate to pick him as well. Just rough. Would have preferred any of the other top 5 quarterbacks get that draft capital. You also had no wide receivers get drafted by Green Bay or Kansas City or the Bills or Dallas. None of them got those juicy landing spots. We are looking at Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks, Drake London, Kenneth Walker, Jameson Williams. And after the 106, it falls off a cliff, man. It falls off a cliff after the 106. And you can even argue that it kind of falls off a cliff from Walker to Jameson. It's rough, man. Those picks that I've been kind of telling everybody to sell, and you guys saw we've been selling them in the Crazy Ambassador series, and we've been selling them lately like crazy. I've been showing it on Twitter. Those picks in that 107 to 112 range all plummeted in value today, and I'm holding on to like 5 or 6 picks in that range across like 8 of my teams, and it sucks, man. This class is not good. From that 107 range, from that 107 to like 204, 205, they're all the same caliber of player at this point. So the whole thing kind of sucks for Dynasty. It really does. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's where we're at with that. I will say the last thing we'll talk about here is the Marquise Brown trade. Marquise Brown gets traded to the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals give up, I believe, the 23rd overall pick, and I think they get back a third. I could be wrong. But for Hollywood Brown, I think I would call it a slight W, a slight win. He goes to an offense that plays fast. They run a ton of plays. I think that Cliff Kingsbury gets a little bit more credit for wanting to pass the ball. They're about like league average in pass rate, but it's still a very good situation after last year. I know the Lamar Jackson Ravens passed a ton last year, but they didn't have Dobbins. They didn't have Gus Edwards. They also were just in a weird spot where they passed the ball a ton. I think that was probably an anomaly. I think they'll probably go back to average to below average in pass rate. So this is a good change up. He also gets a really nice kind of like chemistry link up here where I think it's kind of underrated, but him and Kyler Murray played together in college. Kyler Murray's best year, I believe, was with Marquise Brown. I believe it was. I could be wrong though. But Kyler Murray is also a winner. He gets his one of his college wide receivers. You get Kyler Murray definitely played with Marquise Brown. I don't know why I'm being an idiot right now. 2019 draft class. But he gets another weapon. So now he has Marquise Brown, he has DeAndre Hopkins, he has Zach Ertz, he has Rondale Moore. That's all great. Now, when we're talking about Marquise Brown, I think people might overstate DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not sure yet. Again, I call it a win. You know, he's out of a run first off, or what could be a run first offense to a team that wants to run a ton of plays. You have a really elite quarterback there that probably going to throw the ball more often than Lamar Jackson, and he has DeAndre Hopkins, who is what, like 29 years old, almost 30 at this point. He is kind of on the decline. So I think in the near term, Marquise Brown's target ceiling is probably capped. Like he can't reach a 28% plus target share with DeAndre Hopkins there, but he'll be efficient on this team. There's going to be more plays. I think that it's going to be better for him overall. And I think that it's also probably better than competing with a 26-year-old Mark Andrews who's coming off like a tight end one overall season, and a year two Bateman that can, his range of outcomes are all over the place. He could be a stud. He could not be a stud. But you're talking about a year two Bateman who could be a stud, prime Mark Andrews in what could regress in terms of pass volume next year. Now, in terms of the losers on the Cardinal side, we're going to talk about Rondale Moore, who 100% is going to faceplant now. And I know that I haven't talked about faceplanters in a while, and we'll probably talk about it once we get the official list of faceplanters. But if your ADP from when you get drafted to the next year, to the next year's draft, if your dynasty ADP falls 12 spots or more, you are very unlikely to return any fantasy value moving forward. Rondale Moore was already trending that way. I think with this move, he is 100% going to faceplant. The market is not going to love Rondale Moore, and they're kind of justified at this point. Rondale Moore, a guy who was a gadget player in a really bad role for fantasy. We were hoping they don't make this type of move for Marquise Brown. They don't draft a wide receiver, and then you hope that Rondale Moore comes out there, is actually to be like the wide receiver 2, and he can kind of expand his role a little bit. Now he's kind of shoehorned into this gadget role. He's going to be probably playing, I don't know, some slot, some like running back type stuff. Like really what you're hoping for with Rondale Moore, and it's really sad to say at this point because I have a couple shares, you're kind of hoping that he blossoms into like a Cole Beasley, Jameson Crowder / Cordarrelle Patterson type hybrid, which is like really sad to say, man. It does really suck. Like I do think that it's still in his range of outcomes. He could be like a Tyler Boyd, and he can give you like 1 or 2 top 24 seasons, maybe like a Sterling Shepard. I'm trying to think of those other guys, like a Mario Manningham, like just those random guys that give you like a top 24 season or two. If he gives you a top 24 season before it's all said and done, it wouldn't shock me at all. I think betting on that probably isn't the best bet. It does just look rough for my boy Rondale Moore. You really do hate to see it. You do. I'm not going to say it's a funeral for Rondale Moore at this point, but he is maybe the biggest loser of the entire draft. Now, when we talk about the winners from the Ravens side, I don't think that it's a huge winner, but Mark Andrews for sure. He's now becomes an even better bet as like the main target on this team to finish as the tight end 1 overall all over again with Marquise Hollywood Brown leaving. You have Rashad Bateman, who's also a winner, and I wouldn't say that this means that it's a sure thing that he's going to produce in terms of his median range of outcomes, but in terms of his ceiling, you now get plenty of room for him to command targets. Again, you need him to be good. He needs to be good at football. We still haven't seen that he is a good or elite at football yet, but he now has the space to prove that, if that makes sense. Marquise Brown is gone. I think he had like I want to say like around like a 25% target share last year. With him gone, there's plenty of room for him to blossom if he is that guy. Now, I will say the last loser we'll talk about here, I know I've kind of been rambling, but the last loser we'll talk about is Aaron Rodgers, who is I'll call him a loser just because the Packers couldn't get a first-round wide receiver for him, which is crazy. And I know that there was no wide receivers at 22, and I'm not advocating, or even like 28, I'm not advocating they should have taken like Sky Moore or George Pickens there, because that probably would have been a reach. But when you have 2 picks in the first round and all this draft capital and your back's kind of against the wall, if Detroit can trade up and if the Saints can trade up and all of that can happen, you need to figure out a way to get into the top 12 to get Aaron Rodgers a wide receiver. It's just that simple. The problem is that the Packers are just a poorly ran organization. I mean, who am I to say as a Jets fan when the Packers have like 1 Super Bowls and stuff? But I mean, when you only have 1 Super Bowl to show for Aaron Rodgers, I don't know. I think from a front office standpoint, the Packers aren't the most well-ran team ever. And I think it has something to do with like their ownership. I think that like their fans own some of the team. I don't know, but really ugly, man. Absolutely insane that they couldn't get him a first-round wide receiver. I do hope for his sake that they go and get like, do they even have a tight end at this point? I guess they have like Tanyan, but go out there and get him, like maybe even draft like 2 wide receivers in that Sky Moore range. Give him like one of like Jalen Tolbert, Khalil Shakur, Wan'Dale Robinson, and pair that with one of like Sky Moore, George Pickens, whoever. Maybe even get him George Pickens and Sky Moore. I don't know, man. At this point, I think a lot of people hate Aaron Rodgers, but I do kind of feel bad for him. Like they refuse to get him any help. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I would call him a loser just because, and I have him on a couple dynasty teams. I call him a loser just because we were kind of hoping that at the worst he was going to get like a Treylon Burks or even like an Olave would have been better than what he's got going on now. But yeah, man, they're going to be picking in the second round, hoping for any sort of playmakers. But that's just crazy. I mean, Aaron Jones is going to be playing slot wide receiver this year. It's insane. But that's going to do it for us today. I'm going to be chilling out, watching the draft. I might hop on and stream later or hop on somebody else's stream later. I'm not sure yet. It's a Friday night. I'm probably going to do stuff. I do think, I don't know, man. Let me know how you guys think about it. I do just feel like everybody does like those draft live streams, and to me, like I kind of just prefer, especially on like day 2, I kind of just prefer like watching it with like my friends. Like I kind of just hang out with the boys and watch and tweet about it, and kind of talk about it in the Discord as well. But I don't know, maybe we're like when we're bigger and stuff, like I can do like a whole draft show stream. But I do just feel like it's kind of unnecessary, especially, I'm getting uploads out these days anyways. Tomorrow we're gonna do a stream where we do a rookie mock draft. The minute that day 3 ends and all the picks are solidified, we're gonna do a rookie mock draft tomorrow. So if you look out for that, have like notifications on, so when I go live, you can be one of the 12 guys in that sleeper mock draft. But as always, I love you guys. Make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like, and I will see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice. Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr. Mean.